Hi, you're tuning in to Vantage Point, and on this episode, we will be talking on the topic of aging. The words aging or old usually have a negative connotation to it, and is usually associated with things like sickness or burden. But there are ways, in fact, many ways, where one can live active and gracefully well into their golden years. And I have someone who is a perfect living example. He's my guest today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce. Next to me is Dr. Rico Ricketts. He's a health and wellness coach and is also a Friends to Mankind ambassador from Canada. And next to him, we have Dr. Sharmila Kylasam, who is also Friends to Mankind ambassador from Malaysia, and she's also a doctor herself, so she can give us a bit more on the local perspective on the topic of aging. Firstly, thank you so much for being here, especially to you, Dr. Rico. I heard that you've been here for quite some time, and you have did your observations about how Malaysians perceive aging and wellness. Maybe you can tell us more a bit.
Well, I think Malaysia is a unique country in that because it's tropical and because there's such a variety in terms of foods that people have available to them, and that eating seems to be, or food seems to be part of the culture. And so I notice that people eat a lot.
They do.
I also notice that people drink a lot as well. But the drinks are not necessarily water. Mm-hmm. They tend to be sweet drinks.
Right.
So one of the first things I've noticed is that there's an amazing sweet tooth present. And just in terms of doing some local research myself, I noticed that the sweetener is a liquid syrup, which is called high fructose corn syrup, which is actually can have a deleterious impact on a person's health.
I mean, just to add on to that, I have these figures with me.
Yes.
3.4 million diabetic sufferers in Malaysia, and 300,000 of them are young Malaysians. Maybe Dr. Sharmila can share some insights into that. I mean, this is pretty bad, but it doesn't seem that we are really acknowledging that it is a problem. Is it due to that maybe we Malaysians are less health conscious, less aware? Maybe Dr. Rico can add on to that, because from an outsider looking in and compared to Canada, which is one of the best healthcare system, maybe Dr. Sharmila can start first.
I think we are a very much younger population in terms where health is concerned. Only I think in the last 20-30 years, health is actually being brought out as a viewpoint, highlighted. And what we're seeing is the rush, the stress that has changed over the last 20 years has caused a lot of people to have no time for themselves to actually explore what is it that my body needs, what is it that is good for me. That's one thing. And what we've seen is a lot of younger people, like as you mentioned just now, in the 30s, 40s, are already suffering diabetes as a disease. Or they're living with diabetes, I should say. They're living with diabetes. And why is that so? It's because of our nature of our lifestyle. Well, stress has become the most commonest cause of illness. It's a non-communicable disease. And the reason for diabetes, one of the key causes is eating wrongly. And that eating wrongly is brought about by stress. And I think we say about 1 in 6 people in Malaysia would say that they're stressed due to their work.
Would you agree that she mentioned that eating wrongly is due to stress? Because I think food intake, diet is really about having control over your body, having that self-awareness.
I mentioned stress is certainly an amazing contributor to eating poorly. But sometimes if one uses a sweetener like high fructose corn syrup, the whole biochemistry is different, and in using it, it eliminates a particular hormone which has an impact of making you feel full. So one of the things that can happen is that you develop this ravenous appetite which is never fulfilled, and it's a repetitive cycle. And sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup, which has been I wouldn't say demonized, but has been castigated in the West as being a main contributor to the diabetic explosion in North America. I'm sure that this has some impact here as well. So stress is one thing, absolutely. But then if you use different types of sugars, then that would keep on you feeling hungry all the time. So what I see is that people are eating a lot, too much almost. They're drinking, but their drinking is related to sugar as well. They're dehydrated because they're not drinking sufficient water. And that sets up a cascading event, set of circumstances, right, which leads to problems later on.
And you eat a lot, and this is one of the main cause of diabetes as well. I saw this fact, another fact, that Malaysia has the most overweight people in Asia.
Yes.
And it's something that we acknowledge, we know, but it's just not that much effort or maybe thought or some change of habit of lifestyle to be put into it to really do something. Dr. Sharmila, maybe.
It takes a lot to actually lose weight. As in, the first and foremost, many of us have very short-term commitment to losing weight. And what we like to see is quick fix. And I think a lot of people out there promote very quick fix. Go to a slimming parlor, lose about 10 kilos maybe, those kind of things. But it takes time for your whole body to change and to maintain that change. And just as how long it took you to put on that weight to reach there, it probably takes as long or even longer to come back to a state where you are fairly of reasonable size and weight again. And the commitment has to come from the individual. A lot of ancillary groups are there, but the commitment to that has to come from the individual itself. It does not mean you only eat less for one day. It means a change of mindset about how you feel about yourself. That comes into play. How your support group around you, are they supportive of your move? How you view yourself. A lot of things come to play with obesity. And a lot of people in Malaysia right now are obese from a very young age.
Yeah.
No longer at 30 and 40 are they putting on their weight. They're piling it as young as 10 and 8, for instance. And at that time, that child does not have the confidence or the strength within. So it actually depends a lot on the family to help.
Which brings back topic on aging, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a longer life expectancy. We have better healthcare. We have better procedures, surgeries, and doctors. But the quality of life that is probably might be missing.
It's actually decreasing.
Yes, it's decreasing.
Decreasing. So I say that people are living longer, but they're dying earlier. So quite often, the father of medicine said, you should have food your medicine, food your medicine, and medicine your food. Right now, it seems that by eating too much, you're actually having your food your poison. So each time a person takes a cup of Milo or Tetraray, you're literally drinking poisonous combination. And that has a cumulative effect over time. I love Tetraray. Tasted it, it's incredibly sweet. But one of the things that I noticed also is that, for example, fruit juices, sugar is added to that, or sweeteners. So you're having a double whammy of fructose.
You think that you're drinking healthily,
but it's not. And so people are thirsty, and so they try to assuage that thirst with something sweet or warm, but they actually should be drinking water. Because I noticed that not too many people drink water. So there's hunger, which is never fulfilled, and there's thirst, which is never filled at all. So that combination is a deadly combination. And coupled with the fact that about 75% of the population don't exercise, you have a recipe for an epidemic of problems.
And I believe this is just not Malaysia. Globally, across the world, we are facing perhaps similar problem, and also an aging population, especially in developing countries. We'll go for the first commercial break, but when we come back, maybe we can talk about the aging population. So maybe we could talk about you. You are 70 years old and you're traveling across the world giving speeches and talks. We can come back and talk about how do you do it, and also what are some of the factors that contribute to aging and degenerative diseases. We'll go for the first commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. By year 2050, 1 in 5 people in developing countries will be over at the age of 60 and over, and Malaysia included. We will be an aging nation in about 20 years from now. And when this happens, we will have to change our approach significantly to deal with issues like healthcare and lifestyle, retirement, things like that. But maybe from Dr. Rico's perspective, how are we doing right now to prepare for this impending challenge?
You know, it's not for me to say or to pass judgment, but I would say that it's really important to consider that aging is a lifetime occurrence. It's not confined to the person who reaches 50. I think of it as one as having a health and wellness bank account into which you deposit things like nutrition, exercise, family relationships, some type of meditation or introspection. And then this will allow you to enjoy, right, a more, I say, resilient aging process. Genetics only contributes about 25% to the whole aging situation.
So the big portion of it is lifestyle.
Lifestyle, absolutely lifestyle. Mm-hmm. What people are reaping right now are the seeds that were sown 20 years ago. And it's pretty difficult to turn the Titanic around, in a sense, when you start having chronic degenerative diseases. It actually starts before a child is even born, because the nutrition of the mother will have an impact on the health of the child. The family circumstances will also play a huge role, right? And then they're learning from their social circumstances. And so bad habits, belief systems, it's hard to change something which has been ingrained in you. If you saw your parents eating a particular way, then you do that automatically. So people are locked into or become slaves to belief systems or to habits which are deleterious to their health.
I guess, I agree with you that educating about aging does not start at 60, it starts even now, my age. I'll start thinking that, okay, this might not be good for me, but usually people won't take notice until your body falls ill. You're sick or your parents are sick. Maybe Dr. Sharmila, from the local perspective, how do you think we are doing in terms of preparing for this aging population? We hear about it, we talk about it in newspapers, but it's at the minimal level still.
I think there's more awareness kicking in, but we come in at the point of prevention, not at the target group of 40 and 50. It should start much earlier. That's where we start from. If we're looking at it globally across the board, you should start with the mother. Mm-hmm. The mother's nutritional status has a big impact on the size of the baby which is given birth to. How, not only the nutritional status, how she looks upon having a child, and what kind of eating habits are taught to that child, what kind of belief systems, all that come into play significantly. So what we're looking at is trying to treat from the other end, where we are talking about when you reach 40 and 50, okay, you start exercising, you start going out, you start making changes to your lifestyle, because 40 seems to be the mark when everybody starts, the clock starts ticking, the biological clock starts ticking. Before that, you just go do whatever is necessary, just enjoy and reap whatever benefits of being young is. So we should not be doing that. As one of the key things is eating rightly. In Malaysia, we eat a lot. We splurge on food a lot. It has, until it becomes a point of indulgence, that's when it becomes our nemesis. So those things need to be addressed. And there is a huge effort going on, and that inclination and the awareness is what we want to share with having this talk, for instance. So that will shed some more light into it. And what we like to see is a responsibility from both ends. One from the individual itself, the next, the community, as well as the healthcare support system. So if one of it falls apart, we are not going to be able to attain what we're looking at a healthy community at large. So all three, or all should working towards this. That's what we're looking at.
It has to be a collaborative effort. See, to start, each person has to take responsibility. And each person needs to realize that what they sow is what they'll reap. But they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to begin to incorporate, collaborate, to have these ideas become action steps. Absolutely, more emphasis needs to be placed on prevention. in the school systems, through the private sector, because it's going to have a financial impact of tremendous impact over time. Right now in the United States, billions of dollars are lost each year because people can't show up to work, or if they do show up to work, they're not producing. And in a country like this, which is developing, that's going to have a negative impact overall. So it seems that the public sector, the private sector, have got to collaborate. And mothers, especially, women have a significant role to play in all of this. They literally control the breadbasket of the country, and they determine the lifestyle, in a sense, the habits which are developed over time. The fact that there are ingredients which are used in food, which can be bad or good. And if those choices are made properly, then you begin a cascading set of positive events over time.
Because I think we learn through example. If my mom eats like that, so why is what's stopping me? I mean, that is something that is probably good for me as well.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go for the last commercial break, and when we come back, maybe we can talk a bit personally about Dr. Rico, because when we talk about aging, we talk about physical well-being. We also talk about mental well-being as well. I think that's one part that we often overlook, that is very important to contribute to a very robust aging and lifestyle. We'll go for the last commercial break. Back shortly. Stay with us. Hi, you're still on Vantage Point, and my guest here, Dr. Rico, will be presenting a talk at KL on 19th of January, and he'll be talking about how we can change our habit to be more conscious about the food that we take, and also how can we age gracefully. Maybe Dr. Rico can share with us a bit more about the talk that's going to happen.
It's going to be 40 minutes. There's going to be a gerontologist on board as well, and he'll be speaking first of all, and I'll be speaking later in the afternoon. The idea is, within a short period of time, which is not sufficient, to broach this subject again, to give a different point of view, for example, about exercise, diet, and some things that people can begin to do the following day after the talk. That can begin to have a long-term impact on them.
Simple steps you can do individually.
Because the idea is not to overpromise and under-deliver, but it's to create an awareness that this is a monumental task. It's a daunting effort, and we have to make literally baby steps, but we have to begin somewhere, and there are places that we can initiate this process to have
the title of your talk is the myth of aging.
Yes.
What are some of the things that people usually have a misconception about when it comes to aging?
First, that aging is not a door you walk through when you're 50 years old. Secondly, it's a natural occurrence. Third is that you aren't going to be destined to lose your mind, your body, or your spirit, and that there's a way in which you can grow old gracefully, intact, with joy, and embrace these senior years, with excitement.
Yes, I think that yes, that is of course what we would like to happen. For everyone. If you can talk a bit about the current situation in Malaysia, that we want our senior citizens to live a graceful life, but do we have the capacity at the moment to do so?
I think a lot of it stems from our viewpoint. Many people at this point do not want to age. They think they want to go on, but
they can go on.
But it's inevitable. Aging, the body ages. You may not age as an individual, but the body ages, and that's given. We will have grey hairs. We will not look as great as we did when we were 15 and 16. Do not have as much energy, but it does not mean that you cannot live. And that is keynote. That's the keynote, that we still can live. There is still a place for an elderly person.
Change the perception that aging is something negative and you're going to be a burden to the society. But when you talk about how can an aged person, elderly, yes, you have raised the retirement age to 60 years old now, but how he can contribute back to society even after that age limit? Because I think for a senior citizen, you need to be active. You need to feel that you feel dignified,
Yes.
and you still can
Yes.
contribute
Yes.
back.
You see, there are places in the world, they're called the blue zones, where people live to be 100 years or more, where there's minimal incidence of chronic degenerative diseases. And there's some characteristics of these different places. They're in different parts of the world, Okinawa, in Italy, Greece.
So what are some elements in this blue
One
zones?
is that they don't eat as much as people do elsewhere.
Back to
That's number
eating.
one, back to eating. As a matter of fact, they eat until they're about 80% full. So there's like a restricted fasting procedure. Number two, they don't eat as much animal product. It's called a plant slant. So it's a large component of vegetables, etc. Three is exercise becomes part of their daily lifestyle. So not exercise like going to the gym, but walking, dancing, engaging in different activities, which involves movement. The third thing is that they drink a lot of water. The third thing is that they also engage in some type of meditative practice, contemplative practice. So there's a spiritual thing. They also have something to wake up to in the morning. So there's a joie de vivre that they have. They wake up with something to do. They're engaged. They're actually revered in the community as elders, not old,
Yes.
decrepit individuals who are ready for the downbeat. So it's a different perspective. And so this society or any society loses an amazing part of its wealth if you discard the knowledge, right, the wisdom of the elders. And so it's actually not even looking at the process as growing old, but becoming an elder, achieving a level of status.
Mentor.
Yes, mentor. So this can be changed. I think this used to be in
So we
society.
have to create a pathway whereby elder citizens, they can be to bring value, to be somebody to generate growth instead of viewed as seen as a burden. How do you see this in Malaysian context currently?
I think that there's exactly what Dr. Rico said. They matter at that age. They still matter. There's a huge role for them to play. And for us to be able to enhance and be able to incorporate and be part of living society, they can be the mentors. There's a lot of knowledge that we can gather from them. They can hold and embrace and values that we need to exemplify and follow along. So there is a huge role. And that role should be recognized and accepted.
Yeah.
Accepted gracefully as part of our life. You know, just as there's a role for a child, we do not ignore a child. The same applies to every single individual.
I agree with you, right? Because let's just take the Malaysian context. We are filial people too. I mean, it's in our culture, but
Yes.
oftentimes you're a young individual, you have a family, you have to support your family, you have to work, and a lot of us take the easy way out just to put our parents
Yes.
in the old folks'
them
home,
away.
put them
Yes.
away.
Yes.
But I think it's very, very important for us to start to create that structure for a younger individual to support the parents in their later years. I don't think Malaysia has done it yet. Maybe, Dr. Rico, from your travels around the world, where can you start doing that? Where can you start creating that?
Well, it has to be a collaborative effort, right, to bring this awareness, and from this awareness, action can be done. Because there are examples all over the world of individuals who are in their 80s and 90s who are vibrant, who still contribute. Individuals who are conductors, musicians, artists, famous and not so famous, they are engaged and they're supported. And if a part of the culture and the society is to revere and uphold these icons, right, then that will begin to have an impact on changing the way society views the elderly.
We are at the right path to that.
There's an opportunity.
There's an opportunity.
There's a
it's a daunting task. I mean, I have no misconceptions about this, but it is something that Friends of Mankind feels strongly in. One of the mandates is to eliminate suffering. And there's so much suffering associated with growing old in an unconscious way. But there are examples, as I mentioned before, all over the world where people grow old with dignity. You know, they face each day as an adventure. And so instead of being on the SS Despair or the SS No Hope, you can discard those tickets, right? And enjoy the golden years as golden, right? On the SS Expectations, enjoyment, being of service. And I see this as, it's a passion, and I see that there can be contributions made. And maybe by having these community events, we can begin to have a conversation about how this can become a reality.
Because it takes everyone to really create this.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Rico, and thank you, Dr. Sharmila, for coming on the show. And thank you for watching. If you have any questions, queries, drop us email at cynthia_ung@astro.com, or you can go to our Facebook or Twitter at Astro Awani. Thank you once again, and we'll see you again on the next episode of Vantage Point. Goodbye. Thank you, Dr. Rico.